Brian Helgeland's 2015 film Legend is a gritty crime thriller about the infamous British gangsters, Reggie and Ronald Kray. Based on a written biography, the film explores the brothers, both excellently played by Tom Hardy, their gruesome career, and crimes that ultimately landed them life imprisonment in 1969. Tom Hardy was in for a challenging role, playing twin brothers with different personalities, often sharing scenes. However, it paid off, and he ultimately won 3 awards for his performance. Audiences can easily forget that the film is based on their lives as gangsters in London's criminal underworld. Their crimes, whilst dramatized for entertainment value, actually happened, and impacted countless lives in the process. As gangsters, the twins were involved in robbery, gambling, protection rackets, and murder. Soon enough, they were socializing with some of the more elite members of British society, including politicians and celebrities, such as Lord Boothby and Judy Garland. Their acts soon caught up with them, and they were caught and tried for 2 high-profile murder cases at the end of the 1960s. This saw the twins imprisoned for life, where Ronnie remained until his death in 1995. Reggie, however, died less than 2 months following compassionate release in 2000. The murder of George Cornell. George Cornell was a member of the Richardsons, a group of scrap metal dealers and criminals from South London. The group was engaged in a turf war with the Kray twins in the mid to late 1960s in London, ultimately becoming the agitating factor that facilitated Cornell's death. Depending on whose account is to be believed, to understand his murder it is important to know that Ronnie self-identified as bisexual. Whether he was as open about his sexuality at the time is debatable, but it is generally agreed that he was not as open as Hardy's portrayal indicated in Legend. Several sources indicate that during an altercation on Christmas Day in 1965, Cornell called Ronnie a derogatory term aimed primarily at gay men. These sources claim that this was the cause of Ronnie shooting Cornell. However, in an interview in 1989, Ronnie denied this as the reason he killed Cornell, making clear that his decision came down to a threat made by Cornell to kill him, so he had to strike first. The scene in Legend is portrayed well by Hardy, staying quite true to reports and the written biography. Ronnie had simply learned of Cornell's whereabouts while out drinking and decided to drive straight to the Blind Beggar pub in London's East End. Entering with his driver and assistant, Kray walked up to Cornell and shot him point-blank in his temple. Despite several eyewitnesses, no one dared to testify against Kray, and he, initially, walked free. Cornell died the next morning, at 3:30 a.m. on the 10th of March 1966. The murder of Jack "The Hat" McVitie. This murder took place over a year after that of George Cornell, within an increasingly unstable period of the Krays' lives, which came following the suicide of Reggie's wife, Frances. McVitie worked as a hitman for the twins and was previously hired to kill their former financial advisor, Leslie Payne. McVitie was, however, paid half of his £1,000 reward in advance, and later failed to fulfill his contract. Accounts seem to point to initial hesitancy in Reggie's decision to kill McVitie, but the encouragement of Ronnie tipped him over the edge. Cornell's murder consisted of a simple shot right to the head, but McVitie's was to cause a bit more pain. After being lured to a basement flat, McVitie was subjected to verbal abuse from Ronnie, followed by a glass attack. This led to a heated argument between the twins and McVitie, which resulted in a cousin of the Krays holding McVitie as he was repeatedly stabbed across his body and face. This murder was central to the future of the Krays. For one, the murder annoyed several members of the twins' gang, the firm, and some eventually turned against their bosses. Also, more people were beginning to openly testify against the Kray twins out of fear they would be next. Consequently, it was a pivotal case that eventually put the brothers in prison. Their sentence was issued in March 1969, and their brother, Charlie, was also given a 10-year sentence for his role in the murders. Did the film get it right? One issue with biographical films of people or events is the inevitable mistakes in research and production. Everything cannot be covered in the length of a film, no matter its run time. The film was largely based on John Pearson's, Who Knew the Twins, book on their lives, with Pearson actually praising Hardy's portrayal of the twins. Other family friends have similarly expressed surprise at how spot-on Hardy's performance was. This same family friend did mention points of the film that showed violence towards Francis was simply not true. It appeared that Reggie was not a physically violent person towards his loved ones, saving that for his criminal life. Regarding the murders, the representation of George Cornell's death appeared true to reality. However, McVitie's murder in the film occurred at a party, which is not how it really went down. Such changes are expected from a film portrayal of legendary British gangsters from the 1950s and remain pretty entertaining despite some glaring inaccuracies. Stream on Apple TV+.